Without his panzers on the ground and his Stukas in the air, Hitler's Blitzkrieg campaigns at the beginning of World War II would have been unthinkable. Again and again, it was the Junkers Uso-87B dive bomber, known as the Stuka, that struck the mortal blow. On the morning of September 3, 1939, 11 of these machines braved heavy anti-aircraft fire and dived on the Polish naval base at Hala. They belonged to the 4x186 Squadron, and their target was Poland's most modern warship, the mine-layer Gryf. After a hit on the quarterdeck and several near misses against the hull, the ship was wrenched from the quay but remained afloat. In the afternoon, they returned, their howling sirens, nicknamed the Trumpets of Jericho, piercing an inferno of flak. One Uso-87 was shot down. The two non-commissioned officers, Chupna and Meinhardt, crashed to their deaths. Their colleagues bombed with precision. First Lieutenant Runmid and Lieutenant Lyon scored direct hits forward and amidships on the 1,540-ton destroyer Vecher, which sank promptly. Aboard the Gryf, the forecastle was pulverized and its magazines erupted in flames. It was finally sunk in a low-level raid by the General-Purpose Coastal Squadron 3x706 under Captain Stein. Burning and listing heavily, it sank in shallow water. Above all, it was the Stuka that cleared the path for German armor and infantry, making rapid victories possible. How then did this iconic aircraft come to be? The origin and development of the German dive bomber are inseparably linked with one man, Ernst Udet. Udet, with 62 victories, was the most successful German fighter pilot of World War I, surpassed only by Manfred von Richthofen. Despite the Allies' complete ban on German aviation after the war, Udet defied restrictions, secretly rigging a flying machine to continue flying. He became the patron saint of stunt pilots, thrilling thousands with breathtaking aerobatics performed close to the ground. A survivor of a dozen crashes, Udet was a man with a charmed life and an obsession with flight. On September 27, 1933, at the Curtiss Wright Factory Airfield in Buffalo, New York, Udet tested the sensational Curtiss Hawk. 2 years earlier, he had used this robust biplane to demonstrate his hair-raising stunts before an applauding crowd at a flying display in Cleveland, Ohio. He let the plane plummet like a stone, pulling out a few hundred feet from the ground before climbing back into the sky. From the first moment, he was thrilled with the plane. If only he possessed one, what a difference it would make to his flying displays back home. Now he was testing 2 of them, and they were his for the asking. He could buy them. He scarcely believed it, expecting the U.S. authorities to refuse an export permit. After all, these machines, with their diving performance, had military potential. One could dive from high altitude to sink a warship with a single bomb. It did not occur to Udet that the American Defense Ministry thought little of such ideas, which was the only reason he secured the permit. The financial hurdle was significant. The 2 planes cost over $30,000, a small fortune. Though Udet had earned considerable money, he had spent it freely. Where would he raise the sum? The answer came from the political revolution in Germany. The National Socialists had just come to power, and Hermann Göring, a World War I fighter pilot and Hitler's Reich Commissioner of Aviation, was secretly building a new Luftwaffe. Many former pilots abandoned civilian jobs to join him, but not Udet, who wanted to fly, not sit in an office. When Göring heard of Udet's dive-bombing ideas, he saw a chance to harness the popular aviator. He signaled, "Udet, buy a couple of those Curtiss Hawks on your account. We will defray the cost." Göring made one condition. Before the planes became Udets, they were to undergo thorough examination at the Rechlin Test Center, part of the Luftwaffe's technical office. In December 1933, a commission from Berlin arrived, and Udet demonstrated the aircraft's diving power. 4 times he climbed, dropped like a stone, and pulled out laboriously, sapping his strength. Erhard Milch, Göring's Secretary of State, eyed Udet's exhaustion skeptically. If Udet himself struggled with the machine, who could handle it? Milch deemed the diving concept nonsense, declaring that no material or human could endure it long term. The Hawks were pronounced unsuitable for a German Air Force, and Udet regained them sooner than anticipated. Now truly his, he flew them repeatedly. By summer 1934, he had mastered the vertical dive, ready to feature it in his aerobatic displays. Then, during a practice flight at Tempelhof, disaster struck. Under the strain of a pullout, the tail unit failed, fluttering wildly before breaking off. Udet parachuted to safety just before hitting the ground, his luck holding once more. The dive-bombing idea caught on, despite resistance. Officers and engineers at the technical office, against their superiors' wishes, calculated the blueprint for a dive bomber. It had to be exceptionally robust to withstand repeated dives, attack near vertically, and use air brakes to limit speed to below 375 miles per hour, the limit for both material and men in 1935. The engine posed a challenge. The best aero engines produced 600 horsepower, making the aircraft slow and vulnerable during approach and breakaway. A second crewman with a rear machine gun was needed to defend against enemy fighters. While still officially banned, the Stuka's tactical merits were recognized by Lieutenant General Walther Wever, the Luftwaffe's first chief of staff. Horizontal bombers at high altitude could only hit area targets due to unreliable bomb sights. A dive bomber, aiming with the entire aircraft, offered far greater accuracy. A few Stukas with minimal bombs could outperform a Geschwader of high-flying bombers, a critical advantage given Germany's scarce resources. Oddly, Major Wolfram Freiherr von Richthofen, head of the Technical Office's development section and cousin of the famous fighter ace, was a resolute opponent. With a doctorate in engineering, he mistrusted the Stuka, arguing that it would be too slow, unwieldy, and vulnerable below 3,000 feet, where flak and fighters could easily destroy it. Despite his objections, the Technical Office placed a development contract with industry in January 1935, initiating a competition among Arado, Blohm and Voss, Hankel, and Junkers. Junkers had an edge. Their chief engineer Pohlmann had designed the WW2’s in 1933, meeting all military technical requirements. Their experience with the K-47, a two-seat fighter with dive potential, built in Malmö, Sweden, included testing air brakes and an automatic pull-out device linked to the altimeter. Weeks after the Luftwaffe's blueprint was issued, the WW2’s V1 prototype was airborne. Its bulky frame, low-set inverted gull wings, elongated glazed cockpit, and rigid undercarriage with trouser-like fairings was hardly beautiful, but undeniably solid. Though air brakes were yet to be fitted, test flights pushed dive angles steeper until in autumn 1935 the tail unit was ripped off and the prototype crashed. Testing continued with the V2 and V3 prototypes. In January 1936, Udet joined the Luftwaffe as a colonel, becoming inspector of fighters but focusing on the dive bomber. Flying his Siebel touring plane, he urged factories to hasten progress. Arado's R-81 was an all-metal biplane, while Blohm & Voss's Ha-13, a single-seater, was better suited as a battle plane than a dive bomber. The competition narrowed to Hankel's Ha-118 and Junkers' Ju-87. The He-118 was faster and more maneuverable, but untested in steep dives, while the Ju-87 excelled in dive stability. June 1936 was decisive. On June 3, Wever died in a Heinkel Blitz crash near Dresden. On June 9, Richthofen issued a secret directive, LC No. 401736, ordering the Ju-87's development discontinued. The next day, Udet succeeded General Wimmer as head of the technical office, accepting the desk job to champion the Stuka. Richthofen joined the Condor Legion in the Spanish Civil War, and the Stuka triumphed. Comparison trials in autumn 1936 favored the Ju-87, which could dive steeply and recover safely, unlike the Ha-118, limited to oblique dives. Udet, testing the Ha-118, pushed it into a vertical dive and crashed, escaping by parachute. The Ju-87 was chosen, its birth pangs over. On August 15, 1939, at Cottbus Air Base, Stukas of 1-star STG-76, the Grossgruppe from Styria, Austria, lined up with running engines. As part of war preparations against Poland, they had moved to Silesia under Lieutenant General von Richthofen. Today, under the Luftwaffe's top brass, they were to attack the Neuhammer training ground with cement smoke bombs. Captain Siegel briefed his pilots to approach in attack formation and dive in quick succession. Weather reconnaissance reported 7/10 cloud cover between 6,000 and 2,500 feet, but good ground visibility below. The attack was adjusted to approach at 12,000 feet, dive through the clouds, and align on the target in the final 900 to 1,200 feet before pulling out. Any questions? Then tally-ho, Siegel concluded, using the traditional German pilot's farewell, Hals- und Beinbruch, literally, break your neck and legs. Minutes later, the Stukas taxied, took off in sections, and formed a wedge over the airfield. Equipped with the Ju-87B, powered by an 1,150 horsepower UMO 211D engine, nearly double the Ju-87A's output, it carried a 1,000-pound bomb load, cruised at 200 miles per hour, and had a 125-mile radius, sufficient for Army support. At 0600, high above the clouds, Siegel ordered the formation to attack. He dived first, with First Lieutenant Eppen on his left and First Lieutenant Müller on his right, followed by Squadrons 2, 3, and 1, led by First Lieutenant Dieter Peltz, later a general officer commanding bomber forces. As on countless practices, Siegel tipped over, followed by section after section, screaming through the cloud. 10 seconds, 15 seconds, they should have cleared the fog. But time distorts in a dive. Altimeters were unreliable, needles spinning wildly. Each pilot thought, any moment, the cloud will end and I must align on the target. Siegel wiped sweat from his brow as he plunged deeper. Suddenly, the white curtain darkened, the ground. With 300 feet to spare, he wrenched the stick back, shouting into the microphone, "Pull out! Pull out! It's ground fog!" His junkers sailed into a forest ride, wearing up and skimming the ground by 6 feet, escaping between the trees. Eppen crashed into branches. Müller's plane burst into flames. All 9 aircraft of 2 Squadron smashed into the ground. Most of 3 Squadron escaped, but some pulled out too sharply, looped, and fell stern first into the forest. Lieutenant Hans Stepp, leading 1 Squadron, heeded Siegel's warning, pulling up through the cloud with his unit intact. Brown smoke rose as the Luftwaffe lost 13 dive bombers and 26 crewmen. Wolfram von Richthofen, who had opposed the Stuka but now led them, witnessed the catastrophe. Hitler, informed, stared speechlessly out a window for 10 minutes, but showed no sign of abandoning his war plans. A court of inquiry under General Hugo Sperly convened that day, but found no fault. The ground fog had formed in the hour between reconnaissance and takeoff. Siegel had done his utmost to warn his men. 1-star STG-76 was swiftly reinforced by stripping other Stuka units. From September 1, 1939, it attacked Polish fortifications, crossroads, bridges, railway stations, and trains, overshadowing the Neuhammer tragedy. On September 2nd, Generals Reichenau and Richthofen agreed to prioritize Stuka support for Lieutenant General Schmidt's 1st Panzer Division, thrusting past Tenchanchua towards the Wart River crossing. The Luftwaffe's primary task was to thwart enemy countermovements, with a secondary role of covering the division's south flank. With remarkable precision, 40 Stukas of 1-star STG-2 and 1-star STG-76 destroyed Pietrzykow's railway station as Polish troops detrained. Colonel Schwarzkopf's Star STG-77 repeatedly attacked enemy columns near Radomsko, while the 11th and 14th Army Corps requested air support against stiff resistance at Dialichen on the Wart. Richthofen ordered Reconnaissance Squadron 1-star F-star 124 to maintain a DO-17 patrol over the Wart Bridge south of Radomsko, reporting Polish movements and preventing its demolition with low-level machine gun fire and fragmentation bombs, securing the crossing for the 1st Panzer Division. On August 3, the 1st and 4th Panzer Divisions, having captured bridges the previous night, moved north of the Wart towards Kaminsk and Pietrzykow. Further west, Stuka Gruppen of Colonel Bayer's LG-2 dive-bombed Dialichen, enabling the 11th Army Corps to capture it without loss against a seemingly paralyzed foe. That afternoon, Stuka supported the 10th Army's right wing, facing a strong enemy concentration southeast of Tanchanchua. On September 4th, under air attack pressure, the 7th Polish Division surrendered en masse. Hour after hour, day after day, along the 10th Army's front, the Luftwaffe's direct participation in ground operations surprised both sides. The concept of air support was so novel that ground forces often failed to request it, even in critical situations. The Luftwaffe had to impose its aid uninvited. As the advance progressed, air crews struggled to locate the front or distinguish friend from foe, risking friendly fire. Richthofen's liaison officers in the van prevented total confusion. Even so, mishaps occurred. On September 8, Stukas destroyed Vistula bridges at Gora Calvary just as the 1st Panzer Division arrived, preventing a bridgehead and halting its advance. Such incidents were rare and did not diminish the flying artillery's role in the ground force's swift advance. Beyond attacking enemy resistance at the front, Stuka's bombers and long-range fighters disrupted Polish rear lines, blasting bridges, roads, railways, and communications into chaos, preventing organized resistance or operational planning. Initially, the Poles maintained a united front, yielding gradually. From the 4th day, German breakthroughs and flanking maneuvers outpaced their retreat. Polish forces melted into woods, hidden from the Luftwaffe, resuming their retreat cross-country toward the Vistula at night, seeking salvation beyond the river. The Germans, knowing a swift decision lay on the western bank, raced to outflank and encircle the enemy, preventing their escape across the Vistula.